Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Hari ini kita masuk ke topik yang selanjutnya. Ya, masih sama saya Miss Komala di kelas Research Method on Linguistics. Today we will focus on quantitative research methods. Topik yang sudah kita pelajarin minggu kemarin adalah overview dari research method yang umumnya kita gunakan ketika kita melakukan research atau penelitian dalam bidang bahasa. Ya, kita punya dua besar yang sering kita gunakan pada saat kita melakukan penelitian di bidang bahasa, yaitu quantitative research method and also qualitative research method. Today we will focus more on quantitative research method. What we will discuss today is first an introduction to quantitative research method, what is it all about, and then for concept of quantitative method, here we will discuss about populations, sampling of quantitative research, the samples of quantitative research, and also measurement scales of quantitative research. The first one, we will talk about an introduction to quantitative research method. So, what is quantitative research? Last meeting, we have already learned that quantitative research method is the research that deal with number, right? Quantitative research is an inquiry into an identified problems based on testing a theory, measured with numbers, and analyzed using statistical techniques. The goal of quantitative method is to determine whether the predictive generalizations of a theory hold true. Then, here is some assumptions underlying quantitative methods. First, reality is objective out there and independent of the researcher. Therefore, reality is something that can be studied objectively. The researcher should remain distant and independent of what is being researched. The values of the researcher do not interfere with or become part of the research. Research is valued as free. Yeah. Research is based primarily on deductive forms of logic and theories, and hypotheses are tested in a cause-effect order. And the goal is to develop generalizations that contribute to theory that enable the researcher to predict, explain, and understand some phenomenon. So deal with the hypothesis and how we test the hypothesis here. Here are three general types of quantitative methods. The first one is experimental, or we have already talked about it a bit last topic, experimental research, and then we have quasi-experiment, and then we have survey. Experiments are characterized by random assignment of subjects to experimental conditions and the use of experimental controls. While quasi-experiments share almost all the features of experimental design, except that they involve non-randomized assignment of subjects to experimental conditions. While survey include cross-sectional and longitudinal studies using questionnaires or interviews for data collection, with the intent of estimating the characteristic of a large population of interest based on a smaller sample from that population. Here are some basic comparison of quantitative and qualitative research approaches. We have already talked about it last meeting. Yeah, general framework. For quantitative, it seeks to confirm hypothesis about phenomena, while qualitative seeks to explore the phenomena. Quantitative confirm, qualitative to explore. Yeah. In quantitative, the instrument use more rigid style of eliciting and categorizing responses to the questions, while in qualitative, the instrument use more flexible, iterative style of eliciting and categorizing responses to questions. Quantitative use highly structured methods such as questionnaires, surveys, and structured observation, while qualitative use semi-structured methods such as in-depth interviews, focus groups, and participant observation. For analytical objectives, in quantitative, it's used to quantify variations, to predict causal relationships, and also to describe characteristics of a population. While for qualitative, it's describe variations, describe and explain relationship, describe individual experiences, and describe group norms. For the question format, in quantitative, we use close-ended questions, So we have the exact answer of the questions, yeah, close-ended. While in qualitative one, we have the open-ended question, while the answer can be developed and can be expanded from the perspective or from the point of view of the one who answered that questions. For the data format in quantitative, it's numerical, obtained by assigning numerical values to responses, while in qualitative, it's textual, obtained from audio tapes, video tapes, and field notes. For the flexibility in study design, for quantitative is stable from beginning to the end, jadi stabil ya kuantitatif itu. And then the participant responses do not influence or determine how and which questions researchers ask next. Study design is subject to statistical assumption and conditions, while in qualitative, some aspects of the study are flexible. For example, the addition, exclusion, or wording of particular interview questions. Participant responses affect how and which questions researcher ask next. So if you have the first questions, then the second questions will follow based on the answer of the participant for the first question. For example, do you know BTS? If yes, so what is the next question? If no, what is the next question? Something like that. Study design is iterative, that is data collection and research questions are adjusted according to what is learned. Now we talk about the variables. When we are conducting research, we are dealing with the variables. We will talk about the definition of variables, relating notions, the types of the variables, and the cause of the variables. Definition: variable is something that can change, such as gender, and are typically the focus of study. Jadi variabel ini fokus study kalian tuh apa? Itu variabelnya, ya. Attributes show values of a variable such as male and females, while mutually exclusive attributes are those that cannot occur at the same time. Quantitative data is numeric. This is useful for mathematical and statistical analysis. It's a predictive formula, while qualitative data is based on human judgment. You can also turn qualitative data into quantitative data. Units are the ways that variables are classified. These include individuals, groups, social interactions, and also objects. Types of the variable. The first one is independence. Next is dependence, control, moderator, extraneous, and correlations. Independent variable. Experimental, manipulated, treatment, grouping variable. Ya, itu istilah lainnya. That factor which is measured, manipulated, or selected by the experimenter to determine its relationship to an observed phenomenon. Jadi variabel independen ini adalah variabel yang kalian manipulasi, yang kalian kasih treatment, yang kalian kasih eksperimen, yang kalian kasih perlakuan khusus gitu ya. In a research study, independent variables are antecedent conditions that are presumed to affect a dependent variable. They are either manipulated by the researcher or are observed by the researcher so that their values can be related to that of the dependent variable. What about the dependent one? Dependent variable, yeah, that factor which is observed and measured to determine the effect of the independent variable. In example, that factor that appears, disappears, or varies as the experimenter introduces, removes, or varies the independent variable. In a research study, the independent variable defines a principal focus of research interest. It is the consequent variable that is presumably affected by one or more independent variables that are either manipulated by the researcher or observed by the researcher and regarded as antecedent conditions that determine the value of the dependent variable. The dependent variable is the outcome. And the next one is the control variable. In an experiment, there may be many additional variables beyond the manipulated independent variable and the measured dependent variables. It is critical in experiments that these variables do not vary and hence bias or otherwise distort the result. There is control variable to struggle to manage this. And then next, the moderator variable. It is the factor which is measured, manipulated, or selected by the experimenter to discover whether it modifies the relationship of the independent variable to an observed phenomenon. It is a special type of independent variable. Jadi ini masuknya salah satu independent variable yang spesialnya gitu ya. Jadi yang diukur, yang dimanipulasi oleh the experimenter. And then we have extraneous variable, those factor which cannot be controlled. Jadi ini variabel tambahan yang nggak dikontrol, yang nggak bisa dimanipulasi, nggak bisa diatur, nggak bisa diurus oleh si peneliti ya. They may or may not influence the result. Jadi bisa mempengaruhi, bisa juga enggak untuk hasilnya. One way to control an extraneous variable which might influence the result is to make it a constant. Keep everyone in the study alike on that characteristic. Correlation. With perfect correlation, the XY graph of points as a scatter diagram will give a straight line. Ya, kalau korelasi sempurna, grafik XY-nya itu bakalan kasih kalian garis yang lurus, jadi nggak yang naik turun gitu ya, nggak yang melingkar-lingkar, jadi dia garis lurus. Correlation can be positive, increasing X increases Y, can be negative, increasing X decreases Y, can be non-linear. Increasing X makes Y increase or decrease, depending on the value of X. Correlation, X and Y here is the variables, right? Correlation can also be partial, that is across only a range of values X, as all possible values of X can seldom be tested. Most correlation found are at best partial. The cause, when correlation is determined, a further question is whether varying the independent variable cause the independent variable to change. This adds complexity and debate to the situation. Sometimes a third variable is the cause, such as when a correlation between ice cream sales and drowning is actually due to the fact that both are caused by warm weather. Gitu ya. Now we talk about the population. What is population? When is population identified? And collecting data about a population. What is population? Population is any complete group which at least one characteristic in common. Populations are not just people. Population may consist of, but are not limited to people, animals, businesses, buildings, motor vehicles, farms, objects, events, and etc. Example of populations. How to identify the population? When looking at the data, it is important to clearly identify the population being studied or referred to so that you can understand who or what are included in the data. For example, if you were looking at some Australian farming data, you would need to understand whether the population the data refers to is all farm in Australia, just farm that grow crops, or those that only have livestock, or some other type of farms. Jadi kamu harus tahu populasi yang kamu sedang teliti ini populasi yang mana gitu loh. Ya, example, kalau tadi kamu tentang Australian farming data, populasinya apakah semua di Australia itu, semua ladang di Australia, atau ladang yang hanya menumbuhkan tanam-tanaman, atau farms-nya itu yang hanya punya livestock, ya, atau tipe yang lain. When is a population identified? Kapan kita harus mengidentifikasi populasi? The population needs to be clearly identified at the beginning of a study. So before you start to do your research, before you start to distributing questionnaire, asking for the interview, for example, whether you have the quantitative or qualitative method later, you need to decide, you need to determine who are your populations. Yeah, the study should be based on a clear understanding of who or what is of interest, as well as the type of information required from that population. So, what about collecting data about a populations? Census and sample data sources. What or who is the target population? Population, you need to define target populations. Will the data be collected from all part of the populations? Kalau iya, you can use census. Kalau enggak, you use sample. How will the data be sourced? Bisa primary data and then secondary data. Kalau kamu mencari primary data, you need to do the survey. Kalau kamu butuh secondary data, you need administrative data source. Ketika kita mempunyai populasi yang besar dan kita menginginkan untuk mencari tidak mau untuk semuanya gitu ya. Jadi kalian butuh mencari yang namanya sampling. Bagaimana cara kalian mengambil sampel atau sampling dari quantitative research sendiri ya? Definition of sampling. Sampling is a process used in a statistical analysis in which a predetermined number or observations will be taken from a larger population. The methodology used to sample from a larger population will depend on the type of analysis being performed, but will include simple random sampling, systematic sampling, and observational sampling. The sample should be a representation of the general population. Jadi sampel itu harus perwakilan dari semua populasi, semua general populasi gitu ya. And then here are some sampling method. In most surveys, access to the entire population is near on impossible. Yeah. However, the result from a survey with a carefully selected sample will reflect extremely closely those that would have been obtained had the population provided the data. There are essentially two types of sampling, probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling methods. Probability or random sampling gives all members of the population a known chance of being selected for inclusion in the sample, and this does not depend upon previous events in the selection process. In other words, the selection of individuals does not affect the chance of anyone else in the population being selected. Jadi probability atau random sampling ini, ya kalian random aja ngambilnya. Misalkan dari 1000 populasi, kalian pengen ambil 100 sampel ya, random aja. Nggak ada persyaratan, nggak ada target, nggak ada apa-apa gitu ya. Many statistical techniques assume that a sample was selected on a random basis. There are 4 basic types of random sampling techniques. Ada yang simple random sampling, ada systematic sampling, ada stratified sampling, ada cluster or multi-stage sampling. Simple random sampling. This is the ideal choice as it is a perfect random method. Yeah. Using this method, individuals are randomly selected from a list of the population, and every single individual has an equal chance of selection. This method is ideal, but if it cannot be adopted, one of the following alternative may be chosen if any shortfall in accuracy. Jadi ini yang paling ideal gitu ya untuk pakai di random sampling. Yang kedua is systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is a frequently used variant of simple random sampling. When performing systematic sampling, every element from the list is selected. This is referred to as the sample interval. From a randomly selected starting point, for example, if we have listed population of 6,000 members, jadi populasinya ada 6.000, and wish to draw a sample of 2,000, pengen ngambil sampelnya sebanyak 2.000 orang, we would select every 30th 6.000 divided by 200 ya. 30% from the list. In practice, we would randomly select a number between 1 and 30, 1 and 30 to act as our starting point. The one potential problem with this method of sampling concerns the arrangement of elements in the list. If the list is arranged in any kind of order, in example, if every 30th house is smaller than the others, from which the sample is being recruited, there is a possibility that the sample produced could be seriously biased. The third one is stratified sampling. Stratified sampling is a variant on simple random and systematic methods and is used when there are a number of distinct subgroups. Within each of which it is required that there is full representation. A stratified sample is construction by classifying the population in subpopulation or strata based on some well-known characteristic of the population such as age, gender, or socio-economic status. The selection of element is then made separately from within each strata, usually by random or systematic sampling method. Stratified sampling methods also come in two types, proportionate and disproportionate. In proportionate sampling, the strata sample size are made proportional to the strata population size. For example, if the first strata is made of males, then as there are around 50% of males in the UK population, the male strata will need to represent around 50% of the total sample. The fourth one is cluster or multi-stage sampling. Cluster sampling is a frequently used and usually more practical random sampling method. Jadi ini yang paling sering digunakan dan biasanya lebih praktis gitu ya. Dari tipikal tipe-tipe random sampling method tadi. It is particularly useful in situation for which no list of the elements within a population is available and therefore cannot be selected directly. As this form of sampling is conducted by randomly selecting subgroups of the populations, possibly in several stages, it should produce results equivalent to a simple random sample. The sample is generally done by first sampling at the higher level. Example, randomly sample countries, then sampling from subsequent levels in turn. Example, within the selected countries, sample counties, then within this postcode. Within this household until the final stage is reached, at which point the sampling is done in a simple random manner. Yeah, the level in question are defined by subgroup into which is appropriate to subdivide your population. And then the second one is non-probability sampling methods. Non-probability sampling procedures are much less desirable as they will almost certainly contain sampling biases. Unfortunately, in some circumstances, such methods are unavoidable. Sayangnya kadang-kadang kita mungkin nggak pilih sampling yang ini gitu ya. If you are forced into using a non-random method, you must be extremely careful when drawing conclusions. You should always be honest about the sampling technique used, and that a non-random approach will probably mean that biases are present within the data. In order to convert the sample to be representative of the true population, you may want to use weighting techniques. The importance of sampling should not be underestimated, as it determines to whom the result of your research will be applicable. It is important, therefore, to give full consideration to the sampling strategy to be used and to select the most appropriate. Your most important consideration should be whether you could adopt a simple random sample. If not, could one of the other random methods be used? Only when you have no choice should a non-random method be used. All too often, researchers succumb to the temptation of generalizing their result to a much broader range of people than those from whom the data was originally gathered. This is poor practice, and you should always aim to adopt an appropriate sampling techniques The key is not to guess, but take some advice. Next is the samples of quantitative research. What is samples? Sample is a finite part of a statistical population whose properties are studied to gain information about the whole. When dealing with people, it can be defined as a set of correspondence. People selected from a larger population for the purpose of the survey. What about the sample size? Sample size is important, must be large enough, yeah, if you are dealing with the quantitative one. Too big sample increases cost. Too small sample causes insufficient of data to reach any meaningful conclusions. Jadi kalau sampelnya terlalu gede, dana atau tenaga atau upaya yang kalian habiskan untuk mengumpulkan data itu lebih besar. Tapi kalau sampelnya terlalu sedikit, menyebabkan data yang tidak sufficient, tidak mencukupi untuk mencapai kesimpulan yang bermakna, ya. You have to have as large a sample as possible. Larger sample means more accurate result. Take advice from a statistician who will help you decide the numbers required to give validity to your result. Purpose of sampling or choosing your sample, ya. First one, the purpose is save time. And second one is save money, of course. So save time and money. Unable to survey some large populations. Jadi nggak mungkin kalian mensurvey large population. That's why you have to do the sampling. The fourth one is maybe only some parts of population are accessible. Mungkin hanya beberapa bagian dari population itu yang dapat kalian jangkau, dapat kalian akses. And the fifth one is just observation is never enough. And the next one or the last one is measurement scales of quantitative research. There are 4 types. The first one is nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Nominal represent the lowest level of measurement. When a nominal scale is used, the data simply indicate how many subjects are in each category. Category 4 and category 1 are not different based on the number 4 and 1. 4 is not higher than 1 or more than 1. Example, categories for IQ, types of school, and etc. The next one is ordinals or ranks. Ordinal puts the subjects in order from the highest to lowest, from the most to least. Although ordinal scales indicate that some subjects are higher or better than others, they do not indicate how much higher or how much better it is. Interval has all the characteristics of a nominal and ordinal scale. In addition, it is based upon predetermined equal intervals. Examples, achievement test, aptitude test, and intelligence test. Interval scale, however, do not have a true 0 point. If an IQ test produces scores ranging from 0 to 200, a score of 0 does not indicate the absence of intelligence, nor does a score of 200 indicate possessions of the ultimate intelligence. We cannot say that a person scoring 90 knows twice as much as a person scoring 54, right? 45, right? Sorry. And next, ratio. A ratio scale represents the highest, most precise level of measurement. It has a meaningful true 0 point. Example, height, weight, time, distance, and speed, and etc. All right. That's all. I think that's all for today's presentations. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can drop it on our WhatsApp group. That's all for today's topic. Goodbye and see you on the next topic. Bye-bye.